Hello, everyone. Welcome to My First Dollar. My name is Taryn Arnold. I am with Buy Me a Coffee, and today I'm so excited to be joined by someone all the way across the world. She is an award-winning PR director, writer, incredible human from what I can see on the internet, which you post a lot, so I've seen a lot. This is Joan Westenberg. The crowd
Hi,
goes
folks.
wild.
Hello.
Crowd goes wild. Can we do a little cheers? I know that you went and got your bevy before our cheers.
Cheers, my dear.
What kind of tea are we rocking?
We are drinking Melbourne Morning Blend from right down here in
Oh,
Australia with a touch of honey and a little bit of lemon as well.
okay. Is this a daily thing for you? Are you a tea
Daily thing.
person?
So I used to be a major coffee person, and then I realized it was not helping my anxiety having 7 or 8 cups of coffee a day. Turns out
No.
that's bad for you, so I decided to just make the switch to tea. And my partner is a huge tea drinker, so between the two of us, we just drink a cup of tea every hour while we're hanging out, and it's just constant tea.
That's amazing. Do you
Mm.
start with like caffeine and then like tickle it down? What am I saying?
Honestly,
Tickle it, bring it down throughout the day or what?
it just depends on the mood. I
Okay.
went through this whole period where, for some reason, I thought that licorice tea would be a great idea. So I just kept on buying
Interesting.
various licorice teas, and each one I tried was disgusting. But I was like, no, there has to be a licorice tea out there that is delicious. Turns out there's not, and now I have 8 packets of licorice tea out there that I can just work my way through. But sometimes it's chocolate tea or strawberry tea or chai or green.
Oh, you're adventurous in your
I
tea
love
drinking.
my tea. I love it.
Wow, look at you go. Well, let's hop into it. What's so interesting about you is I was trying to research you is that you have this tech life, and then you also have this creative life on the side. So would you walk us through kind of what those look like and how you juggle the two?
So I've actually had many different lives up until this point. So I'm 31, but I guess my creative life and my career began when I was 15 because I was a little punk rock emo kid and I was jumping in a van and touring around, learning to produce music, getting paid as an audio engineer. But at the same time, I had worked out that MySpace was the greatest social network opportunity at the time. And I
As it
worked out that,
was.
yeah, it was huge. And this is back in 2008, 2007, 2008, and brands didn't know what to do with it. And so as a teenager, I decided that I could fund my music career and fund my tours and quit McDonald's if I just sold some MySpace consulting to brands and just showed them how to use it and build a little business of my own. So that required me to be very techie because I had to speak that language and I had to understand what it was like to work inside a startup and work with a startup and kind of do that whole path. And
Hmm.
so right from a young age, my life was split between tech and creativity. And then to some degree, I kind of recognized that you actually can't separate them if you really want to excel at either because creativity
Totally.
today is defined by and enabled by technology, and technology only stands out and grows if there is creativity infused into its DNA.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, cool. And then so what are you doing on the creative side? I've seen that you have, which I think is the cutest name of all time, this newsletter called Tiny Spells. Is that still rocking?
It is, yeah. So
Tell
look,
me about it.
about a little bit over a year ago now, I got sober. So I had been an alcoholic for quite
Congrats.
some time. Thank you. And I was in the music industry and the tech industry and working for PR agencies, and that's like a Venn diagram of getting fucked up, if I can say that. Sorry, we
You
swear a
can.
lot in
You
Australia.
can.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, I developed a lot of substance abuse issues. So I
Yeah.
decided, okay, well, no, this is not good enough. Now that I've come out as transgender and transitioned and I'm starting to really live my life for myself, I need to be better at my health as well. So I got
Yeah.
sober, quit drinking, quit drugs, and so on. And I decided that as a part of that, self-care really mattered. So
Mm.
every single morning I would wake up and I just open the notes app on my phone and I would just write down 3 things that I was going to do that day to look
Mm.
after my own mental and physical health and well-being. And I would just put a little emoji next to each one, and then that day, those would be my intentions.
Cute.
And then, I was telling my friends about that, and some of them said, hey, actually, could you send those to me as well? Because, self-care matters, and I'd like to get better at it too. So I decided, well, rather than that, let's just start a small newsletter for my friends. And so I launched it. There was just 30 subscribers, and slowly it just started growing because
Mm.
people were, feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling Like, they just were at the end of their rope, because that's what modern life is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And it snowballed, and suddenly there were thousands and thousands of subscribers, and it's now up to around 4,000 members on this list, who
Amazing.
just, they get this email twice a week telling them about how to just make small little intentional steps to look after themselves. And it's as simple
Wow.
as drink some water, or remember to take your medication, or sit down and read a book. Just really simple things that we can all do.
Mm.
I've had this idea that wellness has become too intense, and we have this whole pressure that we have to be X weight and eat X things per day, and it's all just so much. But what we really need to do is just take the small actions that actually matter, and that can really change our lives.
Oh my gosh, that's lovely. Even hearing you talk about that, I feel soothed, because I'm like you're totally right. When you go down the wellness path, it is so overwhelming for so many people. And I assume it was for you, coming from, everything you were coming from and all your stress and everything. And it's cool that you turned that into something that, really matters to you. So how do you think, you said that there was a time where it was just your friends, and then it becomes, this thousands of people list. What happened? How did you get it out there? Because I know for so many people, that's the challenging part. And, that's the dream, that it just organically does it. But what did that look like for you?
I think an audience has to grow one-on-one. Like, a really good organic audience grows by just finding one person who can find one person who can find one person. That's what I've learned from my background in music. You didn't just come out with an EP and suddenly there were thousands of fans and thousands of fans. You had to actually get in the van and go into it and play shitty shows to empty rooms, 10 people who were drunk on beer and throwing bottles at you and shouting, play AC/DC. And, you had to put up with that, because you were growing your audience one by one, person by person. And so my best advice to grow that audience is not to look for a way to go viral or break out overnight or be a smash hit. It's to really put the time in to actually give a shit about your audience members. So even today, thousands and thousands of people on this list, I reply to every single email I get from these folks, because if they've taken the time to invest in me, I'll take the time to invest in them. You grow an audience one by one by showing them that you really give a damn, and I think that matters.
Wow.
I think about bands like Green Day, I mean, Green Day have been going since, I think it was 1986, something like that.
Yeah.
And, when they first started, they were nobodies. They were tiny little nobodies touring around America, just trying to get people to pay attention. And, now they're like a cultural icon. And that's how it happens. It wasn't just a flash in the pan.
Wild. So is there a goal beyond, sorry, my dog is just going to try to break her
dogs.
way in here. I know. Riggy, don't. Okay, I think she's stopping. Is there something that you're trying to turn it into beyond what it is now, or is this just beyond what you thought it would be?
That's a really good question. I think I am. If you'd asked me this last year, I would have said, you know what, there are thousands of things I could do with this, and I want to make it huge, and I want to have events and so on and so on. But we're in 2020, and it's very difficult to think long-term about any of the projects that you have, because everything's so uncertain. And so I guess what I want it to be is just useful. I want it to be really helpful to people. And then as time goes by, if new ideas appear to me and it can become something more, then that's great. But it doesn't have to be. I think that's partly because, I do a lot of different things, and I'm a pretty busy kind of girl, and I have a business to grow and so on. So it's nice to have a project that is just there because I want it to be there.
Totally. I was going to ask how you juggle that, because there are so many creators that, they haven't made it to a point where they're making a full-time living doing what they want to be doing, and it can take a toll on your creative side of your business, because you just, don't give it the love that it needs. So how do you stay motivated? How do you do both well? How do you keep the plates spinning?
Yeah. So look, I don't stay motivated. I have on days and off days. I have on weeks and off weeks. Sometimes I'm just so tired that I can't even think about the business.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
But I think it's about the totality of it all. I think of building a business or doing something creative as being like a relationship with somebody that you love. You're not going to wake up every single morning and be in a good mood with them. Some mornings you're going to wake up and you're going to say, I'm going to meet myself in coffee. Sometimes you're going to wake up and just say, you know what, I need some space, I need some time to myself, I love you, but I'm going to go have breakfast on my own or something like that. And that's what makes a relationship work, if people are really looking out for what they need and recognizing they don't have to be like on all the time.
Yeah.
And so with a business, I recognize that I'm not always going to be loving it. I'm not always going to be motivated. But what matters is that in the grand scheme of things, I do love it. In the grand scheme of things, I want to get up every single day and build it.
Oh.
Now, I think what makes it so much of a passion project for me to build my own creative studio and to do creative projects like Tiny Spells and so on is just that it actually allows me to live a life according to my values and what's important to me. So I spent my 20s and my teenage years just overworking. You know, I'd be from 16 onwards, I'd be getting in a van, like I said, and you'd be driving to a town, playing a show, finishing, getting into the van again at like midnight, driving through the night to sleep maybe a few hours on someone's couch and do it again. And
The grind.
That's it, the grind. And then when I started working in tech, I was working, 7 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night doing like press releases and writing content to help support startups, doing fundraising and things like that. And the hours were just insane.
Mm-hmm.
At 31, I just don't want to do that anymore. Like, I want to really take the time to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy hanging out with my partner and their son and just spending time together. So one of my values is that I work a 4-day week, never more than 4 days. And I understand that by saying that, I'm putting a cap on how much money I can actually make and how big I can grow the different projects I have. And I just don't care. I want to have that day off. I want to have that time to myself.
Yeah.
When I get to the end of whatever this road looks like and I eventually die, which will probably be sooner rather than later because I'm bad at crossing streets, and when I hear the sound across the street, I just go. When I get to that end, I'm not going to look back and say, fuck, I wish I worked those Fridays. Like, it's not going to happen. So,
Totally.
like, by doing my own thing, I can live my own life. And when I really struggle to be motivated, that's what stands out.
Awesome. And is there something you wish you would have known, a year ago with Tiny Spells that you would have done differently? Or are you, or are you just cruising? Because you kind of seem like a just kind of cruising gal.
I'm just cruising. Yeah. I think I've been through some shit in my life, and I've done a lot. And these days I'm really enjoying myself, and I'm having the time of my life. Like, I'm a really happy person, and I wake up and I can't stop smiling, and I think that's what's important. I think you can always be learning. Like, you can always be learning, for sure.
Yeah.
But the stuff that you learn doesn't have to be cosmic. It doesn't have to be a series of earth-shattering revelations that change your paradigm. Sometimes it can just be, wow, today I've learned that I'm actually better at writing if I do it with a paper and pen. Or today I've learned that getting up first thing in the morning and making myself write isn't healthy for me because I put too much pressure on myself, so I'm better just getting up and lying in bed and reading a book for a bit. Like, you can learn tiny little things about yourself, and that's enough.
Oh, wow. I feel you should have a podcast or something. I'm feeling very calm listening to your voice.
Every time I think about doing a podcast, I get caught up on the fact that I'm so tired of doing audio engineering and recording things.
I get that.
Like, I used to get to the studio at like 7 at night some days, and then forgive me for you'd do a few lines of coke, and then you'd just record all night, and then finish at 7 in the next morning, and then you'd go and do your day job and flip burgers at Macca's, and then go on tour, and then like try to run a business and work on your laptop and do coding and stuff. Like,
yeah,
God, it's just. And so when I think about doing a podcast, I think, do I want to be back in a studio? I don't know.
Yeah, it's funky feelings for people. It's like, yeah, I get that. So one thing that I thought was really interesting is you say, I forget where, maybe on your Twitter or your website or something, that you'll always keep your newsletter free. Tell me a little bit about why you've chosen that.
Sure. So, look, I didn't grow up with a lot. I am one of 7 kids. I have 6 brothers, and we have one working parent. Like, we didn't have a lot, I had a lot of hand-me-down clothes and second-hand toys and stuff. And I really feel like there are a lot of people who are coming up like that, who maybe can't afford to go and pay for a newsletter that's going to be good for their mental health, or pay for a newsletter that's going to help them just get some stuff done in a difficult year. And so I think to myself, well, I've got I have so much privilege. Like, I'm a transgender woman, but I am a transgender woman in Australia, and I'm a white transgender woman, and I have a lot of privilege going for me. I don't have to monetize absolutely everything. So if I can do something for free that's going to help people, then I think I should.
And then you tell me about like your decision to, start a Buy Me a Coffee, or I think you also mentioned you're on Patreon.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So look, I decided not to do Patreon because Buy Me a Coffee is just better. Which is not me blowing smoke. It's just like, it's such a beautiful, easy, simple platform that I was like, yeah, this is great. And
Yeah.
it doesn't require me to get people to subscribe. It's just a really nice thing. So people can literally just show that they appreciate some of the stuff I'm doing by giving me some coffee money, so that I can literally go out and get a chai latte. And I think that's a really nice thing to do. But the beauty of it is that I have such an engaged audience who cares so much that they actually donate really regularly, and those donations cover hosting costs, and they make so that, Tiny Spells actually breaks even with some money for coffee on top of it, and that's a really wonderful thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so by using Buy Me a Coffee, I haven't monetized, I've just funded it. And so it's not been about, okay, I'm going to make this a commercial entity. It's just been, I'm going to make this sustainable. And that's what has allowed me to do that. So I really love it.
That's very cool. Do you remember the first time you made, someone bought you a coffee or something like that on Buy Me a Coffee, or on any way that someone had like tipped you or something? Do you remember your first dollar doing your creative stuff?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was literally somebody had seen some tweets that I had written. They were tweets just about what it's like to be a transgender woman in tech. And she was a VC in America, and she was just like, you know what? Those tweets really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I would love to just send you a quick donation or quick tip. Is there a way that I can do that? And I was like, I don't know. So I jumped on Product Hunt and just searched for it, and Buy Me a Coffee came up. I made a quick account, sent her the link, and she sent me some coffee money, and I was like, hell yeah, that's fantastic.
You're like, that was lovely. Thank you. Have some chocolate tea on you because of that.
Right.
That's amazing. Who is buying you coffee? Who are your fans? Who are your subscribers?
They are from all over the world, I have authors from various cities in the US. One of them bought me a coffee and then asked for my address to send me some copies of her book, which is really cool. I have designers and creative folks. I have just regular folks who want a little bit of light and sunshine in their day. I have mums, I have dads, I have people from the queer community. Somebody emailed me the other day and said that she had just been going through treatment for cancer, and Tiny Spells had been helping her just get through the days. So it's so many different people.
How special.
And that makes, that it really feels like such a privilege to be able to write for these folks.
I forgot to ask you earlier, which would have been better earlier, but so I have tried to have a daily newsletter. It is really hard work. I did it for a month one time. It was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Never will again. So I think yours is 2 times a week or so? 2 or 3? How do you, for anyone that is releasing creative work on a cadence like that, it's so constant and regular and often. How do you come up with things? Do you have a system for getting ready for publishing, or is it just you sit down and go?
Look, you come up with your best ideas by just engaging with the world and living, having as many conversations with people you love as you can, watching stuff that you love, reading stuff that you love. All of that actually, it gets into your brain, into your heart, into your soul, and it infuses your work. The worst thing you can do is just make yourself constantly create without taking the time to consume, because you will run out of fuel. So I'm always having my head buried in a book. I'm always starting to watch something new with my partner. We're always sharing stuff with each other and talking about stuff, and that really helps me create things. But I don't just sit down when it's time to write and just write. I have a scratch pad of ideas and notes and things that I've thought of and picked up, and they just all sit there in Notion so that I can poke around in them anytime I want to. And that really does help. But I think the most important part is, if you set yourself a creative schedule and you say, I'm going to do it on these days, forgive yourself if you can't. If you have a week where things are just overwhelming and you can't get it done, and then you browbeat yourself into doing it, you're going to start hating your creativity, and you're going to start hating your project, and that's where things die. So like set your schedule, but then give yourself some space and some love and some forgiveness, because you're only human and you can't be perfect all the time, because the closest thing we have to perfection is Helen Mirren. I'm sure even she is not perfect all the time.
You have such a healthy view of this all, which I think is really rare. I feel like so many creators are just like, I don't know, it's all hard and it's crazy and blah blah blah. But like you seem to really you're kind of floating above it all, at least from what I'm seeing. It's like you're there and you're watching it and you're like, oh well, this is just how it is. Where did that come from?
I have had a really tough 31 years to live
Yeah.
through, like I've gone through childhood abuse and having a really abusive parent. I have been sexually assaulted. I have been flat broke and sleeping on a pile of clothes on the floor. I have gone from having absolutely nothing to having less than nothing. And, throughout that, I struggled with alcoholism and with drug addictions and with major, major depression. And all the while, I was desperately, desperately trying to find a way to be the woman that I was as a transgender person, and feeling the absolute pain of all of that. And then, after transitioning, I live a life where I get death threats pretty regularly from people online, and
Awful.
I'm constantly abused. I get emails from folks telling me that they can't wait to find me so they can murder me and things like that. And throughout it all, what really seems to matter is that I'm still here and I'm still kicking, and I'm still pretty damn happy. And so I think to myself, well, what really matters, it is that happiness. Like, if you can go through all that much shit and still be smiling, not much else is really going to get in your way.
Yeah.
And so I can wake up in the morning and make something, and if people don't like it, well, that's okay. Like, I like it. And if my clients don't want to work with me and I lose a bit of income, or the business goes through a down period, well, that's okay. Like, I used to have nothing. Now at least I have a home that I love and people that I love around me. And even if I have a really crappy week full of crappy days, it'll get to Thursday night, which is when my week finishes, and I will just sit down with my partner and we will read some books together and drink tea, and nothing can take that away from me. So why worry?
Oh, I'm having such a moment right now. This is lovely. I don't even want to speak like loudly. I want to whisper now. I'm feeling very calm. So I have a couple more questions, but on this topic, 2020 has been a year for everyone. And I think what I've seen, at least in the creative space, is people are losing motivation. They're like uninspired. They're depressed. Like, people are just feeling the weight of the world this year. So as someone who's gone through that longer than just 2020, what advice would you have to a creator that's just like feeling stuck right now?
My advice for 2020 is that all you have to do, the only responsibility that you have, is to get yourself and your loved ones through it. Nothing else matters. Like, it doesn't matter what you create or don't create. It doesn't matter what your metrics are. It doesn't matter what the analytics say. It doesn't matter how many visitors you get or sales you make. All that matters is that you survive this year. Because, like as a creator, sometimes it's easy to think that your value is drawn from your work and what you make and what you put out there into the world. But actually, your value is innate. Like, you have value just because, hey, you exist, like, you've made it this far. Therefore, like, that is what matters, like, you could just stop making right now and never make another thing for the rest of your life as an artist, and you are not any less valuable or worthwhile of a person. You are a wonderful, incredible human being, and you are one of, the chances of you arriving on this planet are so incredibly tiny that we should just celebrate that either way. Because, like, at some point, billions and billions of years ago, like, your ancestral miasma of random little goblins crawled out of a swamp somewhere, and then somehow you arrived. So if you don't, like, put a whole bunch of art up on Twitter today, like, it's okay. You're still amazing. Get through the year. Next year we'll deal with that when it comes to it.
That is lovely. I have to ask, because I just feel like you'll have a very interesting answer to this. And it's also okay if you don't. But if you could get coffee with anyone in the world, any creator, artist, dead or alive, not coffee, actually, tea in your case, who would you choose?
I would choose Joan Didion
Mm.
because her writing gives me life, and I honestly feel like she's the best writer I've ever read. I love her work. It's like the way she phrases things is something that I could never achieve but will always reach for. So Joan Didion, number one. Who else? Patti Smith.
Mm.
I adore Patti Smith and all of her work. She has a way of looking at the world that I find really quite wonderful. When I transitioned, I actually took my name from Joan Didion and
Mm.
Patti Smith, so I made my name Joan Adelaide Patricia
Oh my gosh.
in like honor of those folks. And then on top of that,
That's amazing.
just because 13-year-old me would insist, I'd love to just get a cup of tea with Good Charlotte.
That's incredible.
13-year-old me would not forgive me if I had the opportunity to have tea with anyone in the world and I didn't say Joel and Benji Madden. And look, that just is what it is. My hand.
It's very good on you to honor 13-year-old you. You needed it. You needed it back then, and you are giving it to 13-year-old you.
Look, 13-year-old me did a lot of things that have helped me become 31-year-old me, and 13-year-old me like had to go through all the shit of like being a young teenager trying to work out that they were trans and having no idea what the hell they were doing. So I owe them all a little bit of something.
You're sending a gift back.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow, Joan, this was so lovely. What are you working on right now? What are you excited about? What's getting you excited today?
Gosh, well, today I'm really excited that I'm going to have dinner with my friend Kate tonight, and then
Cute.
we're going to go to a yoga class together because I just really like taking that time with her and just like stretching out and really being in that moment. So I'm thrilled that I get to do that every 2 weeks. It's in my calendar. I just look forward to it so much.
Cute.
What else am I excited about? I'm really excited about getting back to writing for no purpose and no reason and no project whatsoever. So I'm trying to put a little bit of time aside to just sit down and write, and it doesn't have to be anything, and it can just be random thoughts or a diary entry, but I'm excited to put a bunch of words next to each other and see what comes out.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah,
That sounds
no,
absolutely lovely. Where
doesn't
can
always-
people?
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't need a purpose
no, it
always.
doesn't need a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can people find your work?
The best place to find me is actually Twitter, because I'm a Twitter tragic and I just can't stop sharing stuff out there. So if you follow me at twitter.com/Joan Westenberg, you can see everything right there. Otherwise, I'm Joan Westenberg on Instagram, and I am joanwestenberg.com on the interwebs, or linktree/Joan Westenberg as well. Everywhere.
Everywhere. Just look up Joan Westenberg, people. It's pretty easy. Well, thank you so much. This was lovely. I literally feel really calm right now. I'm going to go have a great rest of my day. You put a little tiny spell on me, I think.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's so good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You're the best.